Hello everyone, today I will recap the movie Into the Storm. As you know, the F5 tornado is extremely terrifying. It is like an apocalyptic disaster. With winds that can reach 500 kilometers per hour, wherever it passes, only ruins remain. However, there are many ways to form such a devastating storm, and the approach in today's movie is very special. It is formed from dozens of small tornadoes combined, including a fire tornado. Let's see how cruel Mother Nature can be when she gets angry. Please follow along with today's recap. The movie begins with 4 students parking their cars on the street. Suddenly, a light bulb in front of them starts to flash continuously. The whole group is curious and thinks it is just an electrical short circuit. However, in the next moment, they see the silhouette of a tornado. Panic ensues as the group tries to turn around and run away, but the tornado arrives too quickly, leaving them with no way to escape. The following day, the news reports that these 4 people were swept up to an altitude of 245 meters, and of course, no miracle occurred to save them. Meanwhile, a manager takes his team out to chase tornadoes, intending to make a documentary and post it on YouTube to earn money. However, they haven't filmed any storms in a year. If this continues, it will be difficult to sustain their livelihoods. Feeling frustrated, he asks his team when they will be able to determine the location of the next storm. Although she knows her boss is very frustrated, Allison listens reluctantly. At this moment, they receive a signal from the National Weather Service indicating that a new storm is forming 300 miles north. Meanwhile, Lil Donnie is in his room making a video titled 25 Years Later. His father, Gary Fuller, is the vice principal of Silvertone School. He is so busy with work that he doesn't have much time for his 2 sons, which leaves the older son feeling very unhappy. Nearby, 2 young men are filming to become YouTubers, specializing in exploration and adventure topics. One of the group was driving an off-road vehicle, and the rest of the group burned kerosene on the lake. After their challenge, the vehicle crashes into the lake, and they are excitedly shouting, believing that this video will eventually reach 1 million views. However, the homeowner comes out and kicks them all off her property for daring to destroy her swimming pool. Meanwhile, Pete, a storm chaser, introduces his armored car. It is equipped with cameras around the body, bulletproof windows, and 4mm thick steel, allowing it to withstand terrible conditions where wind speeds of 275 kilometers per hour cannot defeat this monster. Notably, it also has a fortress on the roof equipped with a camera to film the eye of the storm, something that only God could see. Gary's 2 sons are responsible for filming the graduation ceremony today. At this moment, they witness the girl Donnie like being forced by her teacher to redo her graduation project because her file was damaged. Donnie promises to help her complete the project, which moves Caitlin. The only unfortunate part is that Trey has to shoulder the responsibility at school alone. When filming a construction worker, the worker said, "You guys try to study hard and get good grades, otherwise you'll have to stay here digging the ground to make a living." This made the workers in the back very surprised. Then Trey went to interview an old man sitting with a dog. Trey asked, "What would you say to 25 years from now?" The old man replies, "Oh, I hope I live to see that." After carefully checking the camera angles, Trey finds himself handling all 3 cameras alone, which makes Gary, their father, worry. Meanwhile, Donnie continues to work hard to help Caitlin. On the other hand, the female lead, Allison, is so busy chasing storms that she misses her daughter's birthday party, which hurts her. Shortly after, as she predicted, a large hailstorm hits their town, confirming that a storm is indeed forming. They immediately head toward the area where the black clouds are rolling in, hoping to see a tornado develop from there. Just as they anticipated, a tornado drops from the sky and touches down, forming a pillar. It sweeps away trees and everything else in its path. At the same time, the graduation ceremony for the Silverton students is taking place, and the storm arrives at this location with rain and strong winds, blowing away tables and chairs. Nearby, a few young people were also present, taking advantage of this opportunity to become famous. Team leader Pete was driving to follow the storm. He ran forward to block the tornado, and then used specialized equipment to secure the car to the road. This time, they hoped to film the eye of the storm, something no one had ever dared to do before. Their motivation was partly their passion, and partly the money they would earn from the video. They could only close their eyes and wait for the tornado to sweep by. However, this tornado only approached their car and then veered off in another direction. At that moment, The whole group did not understand why the storm had suddenly disappeared. After the storm passed the storm hunters, it headed straight for Silverton School. While his father was evacuating the students, Trey was engrossed in filming a video. Suddenly, a tree flew straight into the gate, shocking him as he saw the giant tornado. The group of students immediately ran away in a panic. Vice Principal Gary evacuated the students to the lobby and sat down on the ground, instructing them to lower their heads and hold onto each other tightly. Immediately after that, the tornado swept straight into the building. The wind was so strong that it tore the lockers apart, and some people were even blown away a considerable distance. Fortunately, the tornado came quickly and left quickly, causing minimal damage. Afterward, Gary picked up the phone and called his son Donnie. However, Donnie was afraid of being scolded by his father and did not dare to answer. Gary borrowed Trey's phone to call Donnie, warning him not to go outside because the storm was approaching. In the middle of the conversation, the phone signal was lost. Before they could comprehend what was happening, the storm had already reached the abandoned factory. As soon as Gary finished speaking, the tornado blew off the roof. Before they could do anything, they were buried under bricks and debris. At the high school, Gary's father went outside and witnessed the terrible scene, while the news reported the damage caused by the storm. However, that was just the beginning, as another storm had just formed not far away. Pete's group had to stop after traveling a short distance, because they were blocked by a high-voltage power pole that had fallen across the road. Allison reported to the team leader that a new storm was about to hit the city. Pete was excited and urged the whole team to chase the storm toward the collapsed paper mill. Donnie was lucky to be unharmed, but his girlfriend had a slight pain in her leg. Donnie carefully bandaged the girl's wound. His father was so impatient that he drove with his youngest son to find his son. After traveling a short distance, they encountered a severe tornado blocking the road. Gary got out to look for survivors, discovering that these people were all his neighbors. An elderly man was trapped by a seatbelt, and Trey handed his knife to Gary to cut the belt. Gary helped the man out along with some other young men, and afterward, Trey's father confiscated Trey's knife. Team P arrived at the town of Silverton. They met the two mischievous young men again, wanting to advise them to find a safe shelter. Before he could finish his sentence, a tornado appeared but quickly dissipated. Allison knew that this weather would not end so easily. Just as she thought, a tornado twice as strong as the previous one appeared, immediately demonstrating its destructive power as it touched down, instantly blowing away a row of houses. Trey and his father had just run to the area affected by the storm, when their car was blown to the side of the road by the tornado. With no other option, they ran into a nearby house. But before Gary could get inside, a car blocked the entrance. Nearby, Allison was also blown out of the armored car. Luckily, Gary ran over in time to grab her hand, and a moment later, the storm dissipated. Now the only car of Gary, and his was also broken. Allison knew that the person who saved her was going to the abandoned factory in the north. Seeing that the father and son were going the same way as her, Allison convinced her boss to let Gary go with her. When Mr. Pete saw Trey holding a camera, he told him, "Hey kid, keep filming a lot. After this, I will pay you $3,000 for everything you film." Obviously, Trey could not refuse. As for Donnie and his girlfriend at the paper factory, after a moment of silence, water started leaking from somewhere, madly flowing toward them. Meanwhile, the two mischievous young men were still trying to capture their dangerous footage. Pete's team was also on their way to the abandoned factory, when the rain and lightning became more intense. It was clear that the storm was gradually getting stronger, with the possibility of developing into a tornado. Shortly after that, a giant funnel formed and touched down. Soon, things worsened when 3 more tornadoes appeared simultaneously, marking the first time they had seen so many tornadoes at once. Allison noticed the abnormality and warned the Pete, "One tornado is enough to devastate people and roads when it passes, let alone this time when there are 4 tornadoes sweeping through." The two adventurous young men were extremely excited. They had no idea what danger was, and were still dreaming about their potential fame, when the tornado approached and swept them into its vortex. The truck waiting for Allison and Gary was struck by the tornado, because it was not equipped with modern anti-electric equipment like Pete's car. Very quickly, they were blown over onto the side of the road. The tornado also destroyed an oil tanker, causing oil to leak everywhere. Combined with the fallen electric pole, the impact of the tornado caused the fire to flare up, creating a fire tornado. Allison's boss turned around to rescue the group of people with her. At this moment, another tornado was chasing them, and a fallen tree blocked their path. As soon as they ran to one side, the tornado on that side was frantically sucking in the fire, amplifying its destructive power. Jacob, a member of the team, was captivated by the scene and stayed behind to take out his camera to record. Not knowing that death was waiting to pounce on him, the tornado grew stronger and sucked his camera away. Jacob even wanted to run closer to get the camera back, but this action cost him his life. The fire tornado engulfed the young man, and a few seconds later, he was seen burning and lifted off the ground. Allison wanted to go rescue her colleague, but was promptly pulled into the church by Gary. Finally, the storm passed, and they lost a colleague forever. However, all the boss cared about was the footage they had filmed. Allison was extremely dissatisfied and scolded the boss directly. A fellow team member stood up to calm the situation. He would stay behind to contact Jacob's family, while Allison would go with Gary to help his son. At the paper mill, the water continued to pour in, but fortunately, Donnie's phone showed a signal. He immediately sent a distress message to his father, informing him of their urgent situation and how it would be difficult to hold on for long. On the way, Gary met a truck taking shelter. The driver said that the factory had collapsed. In desperation, Gary opened his phone to check and was lucky to receive a distress message from his son, Donnie. Regaining his confidence, he sped toward the abandoned factory. A moment later, Gary and the others arrived at the abandoned house, but there was no response. Allison noticed that the place was flooded, indicating that they were likely trapped under a drain pipe. They quickly found the young couple's crash site, but the iron bar was too large to clear the passage above. In a moment of crisis, Trey drove the car and knocked the iron bar aside. However, this caused another piece of iron to press against Donnie's leg, preventing him from rising to the surface. After rescuing Donnie's girlfriend, the father jumped down to find his son. However, the iron bar got stuck. He had to go back up and take a knife to cut the rope that tied the iron bar in order to rescue Donnie. Unfortunately, because he had been underwater for a while, Donnie had drowned and was no longer breathing. Gary tried to give him CPR. Thanks to the love of a father and his best efforts, he finally saved Donnie from the hands of death. Soon after, Pete returned to them. However, what he needed were the hard drives they have recorded. This place was about to experience a new storm, and the media had already begun to notice the horror of the impending disaster. This time, there were only 2 tornadoes, but their size and destructive power were no less than that of an apocalypse, and their direction was toward the town of Silverton. However, that was just the beginning. Soon after, these 2 tornadoes merged into one. Inside the funnel, the wind speed could reach 480 kilometers per hour, categorizing it as an EF5 tornado, the biggest tornado they had ever seen in their lives. Wherever it passed, it left nothing but flat land. Silverton High School would be the next place it passed through. Vice Principal Gary immediately remembered that the alarm device was broken, meaning the students at the school would not know about the impending danger. He had no choice but to return to the school to evacuate the students immediately. Initially, the principal did not agree, but after hearing Allison's professional explanation, he was completely convinced. The students were immediately put on buses, and they left as quickly as possible. The storm was closely following them, and less than a few minutes after the convoy departed, the EF5 tornado destroyed their school. After running for a while, a high-voltage power pole fell across the road. In this emergency situation, they had no choice but to turn around and take another route. However, the storm moved too quickly, forcing them to find a safe place to hide. Donnie chose a nearby sewer because it was a spot where he often hid to film videos in his spare time. Unfortunately, the entrance was blocked by a large iron grate. They could only use a crowbar to pry open the sewer cover and get in. Immediately after that, a car was blown away by the wind and crashed into the bus. Luckily, everyone managed to get inside safely before the giant tornado could sweep everything away. The next second, the storm brought large planes from the local airport, along with grains of sand before the terrible storm. Suddenly, a truck was sucked into the air by the storm. After somersaulting in the air, it fell right into the sewer, severely damaging the iron grate and causing the iron cover on top to pop off. Realizing that if the storm passed by them, there would definitely be no survivors, Pete volunteered to drive outside to block the iron gate. He handed the tape to Allison and told her that if anything happened to him, she should finish it for him. Above them, the tornado was very close. Pete was hit by a flying object but still tried to get into the car, Below, the suction was so strong that a man was blown away, and Allison was also thrown away from everyone. At the moment of danger, Titus managed to stop the iron grate in time, saving the female lead from certain doom. Pete started the device to secure the car to the ground, but the wind speed had now exceeded 500 kilometers per hour. They had to use a winch to hook it to the truck at the other end of the culvert, hoping that the storm would pass soon. Pete had been waiting for this moment all his life. He climbed up the observation tower, tightened his seat belt, and began filming, feeling the Grim Reaper approaching him. At the moment, Titus's car promptly blocked the iron net, saving the female lead from death. But Mr. Pete announced that they were now in the eye of the storm. Soon, the terrifying feeling would return, but this time, the tornado was many times stronger than before. Pete's armored car was constantly being thrown up and down. Finally, it couldn't withstand the force any longer and was blown into the air. The wind was so strong that it caused the people inside the sewer to fall over. Gary was sucked up through the manhole, but tried his best to hold on and refused to let go. Pete sat inside the Titus, which was being lifted by the tornado. He was right in a storm. In a flash, he flew through the clouds and saw the most beautiful light he had ever encountered in his life. The next second, reality pulled him back. The Titus was nosediving without brakes and falling freely. A few seconds later, the armored car crashed straight down to the ground. Finally, the storm dissipated, and everyone in the sewer was lucky to escape. The father returned the knife to Trey because, thanks to it, he was able to save his loved ones. The F5 tornado, at that time, was considered the strongest tornado in history. Initially, it only caused hail as big as golf balls, but in the next moment, it turned the impossible into the possible, destroying everything in its path. The 25th anniversary of Silverton High School ended with the emotions of those who experienced this catastrophic event. Live and feel each day, and after the rain, the sky will be bright again. No matter how difficult it is, you must move on. Allison also completed the documentary, fulfilling Mr. Pete's last wish. At the end of the film, the two fearless young men are still alive, having been blown up to the treetops by the wind, and they remembered to film it to post on YouTube. The film ends here, although we know that the sun and rain are part of nature. Humans cannot control everything, but we can protect the environment and resources to help mitigate natural disasters. Thank you very much for your support that has allowed the channel to develop to this point. If you found it interesting, please give me a like and leave a comment about this film. Especially, please subscribe to the channel to follow my latest film summaries. See you again, my dear friends.